Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm gonna be talking about Nolan, one of the strongest and most popular assassin in the game. In this video, I will also discuss how Nolan works in full detail, which includes his passive, skills, builds, emblems, combos, along with some tips and guide on how to use him in a match. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. Ever since Nolan first got released, he has been one of the favorite picks in high ranks, and also in tournaments. But mastering Nolan could be difficult, especially if you have never used him before. So, in order to master Nolan, you must first understand how his passive and skills work. So let's start with his first skill. And a quick note before we begin the tutorial. Nolan's passive has two abilities, but I will combine his first passive with his first skill, and explain them together, so that it won't be confusing for you guys. With the help of his first skill, Nolan cuts a rectangular area in front of him with his cosmic gauge, dealing 230 physical damage and leaving a rift at the first enemy hit. And with the help of his passive, if you use his first skill again in the same area, both the rifts will come into contact and explode, dealing 220 physical damage. And just like Fanny and Hayabusa, Nolan uses energies instead of mana. And his first skill consumes 25 energy when using it, but if the rift explosion hits an enemy hero or jungle creeps, then you will regain 15 energy. And just like Fanny, Nolan relies on energy in order to deal damage, meaning you will constantly need to prioritize taking the blue buff. And if you don't know why the blue buff is important, then let me explain it to you. Blue buff provides you with 10% cooldown reduction, along with mana cost reduction by 60%. And if you don't use mana, then it will reduce the energy cost of your skills by 25%, which is really a huge difference when using heroes like Fanny and Nolan, as these types of heroes depend on their energy in order to deal damage. And after you take the blue buff, the energy cost of your skills will go from 25 to 20, which doesn't sound a lot, but trust me, it makes a lot of difference. And if your skills consume less energy, then you will be able to spam your skills more often. And I forgot to mention, the blue buff will also increase your overall energy by 20%, meaning you gain more energy when taking the blue buff. And if you didn't know about these, then please consider liking the video, as liking the video helps my channel a lot. And your first skill is your bread and butter skill, as it is your main source of damage, so make sure to max out your first skill first. Now, let's talk about his second skill. With the help of his second skill, Nolan charges in the target direction and slashes with his cosmic gauge, dealing 70 physical damage to enemies in his path and leaving a rift behind. This is your main source of mobility, and this skill also packs a lot of damage, so you can deal damage to enemies by dashing on them. And make sure to combine this skill with your first skill, as combining this skill with your first skill will cause them to explode. So make sure to keep that in mind, so that you will be able to deal the maximum amount of damage. And this skill also has a low cooldown, making it perfect for chasing or escaping from enemies. But make sure to remember that using this skill will cost you 25 energy, so I'd recommend you to use this skill only when necessary. Now, let's talk about his ultimate. With the help of his ultimate, Nolan slashes the target location 3 times, dealing 120 physical damage with each slash while leaving 3 rifts. And after a short delay, the 3 rifts will explode and deal more damage. And you will automatically dash backwards whenever you use your ultimate, which is quite useful as it allows you to keep some gap between you and the enemy, allowing you to escape or continue fighting. And Nolan's ultimate does not consume energy, meaning you can still use this skill even if you don't have any energy left. And as I have mentioned before, whenever the explosion of the rift hits an enemy or creep, you will regain 15 energy. And this skill has a low cooldown like your other skills, and also, this skill doesn't consume any energy, so you can pretty much use this skill to regain energy, which is quite useful. Now, let's talk about his second phase of passive. With the help of his passive second ability, if you don't deal or take any damage for 5 seconds, your next basic attack will be enhanced, And using your enhanced basic attack will let you dash towards the enemy, dealing physical damage and also leaving a rift behind. And this way, you can use your first skill to activate the rift explosion. And whenever your basic attack is enhanced, there will be a circle around Nolan, which indicates his basic attack is enhanced. His enhanced basic attack is just like his second skill, but the only difference is that you can use the enhanced basic attack only when there are enemies and minions around. Now, let's talk about his combos. Unlike other assassins, there aren't a lot of combos you can do using Nolan. But there are two combos that you must know when using him, so let's start with the first one. This is the basic combo. You start with your enhanced basic attack, followed by your first skill, and then you can carry on the attack by spamming your first and second skill. And for the second combo, use your enhanced basic attack to get close to the enemy, and then immediately follow it up by using your first skill, and then your ultimate, and after that, use your second skill, and then your first skill again. Now, let's talk about his builds and emblems. For Nolan, it's recommended to go for items that increase your physical damage. And since Nolan is a burst hero, items like War Axe do not benefit him a lot. And for Nolan to be able to burst down the enemies, this is the best build for him. This build will allow you to instantly burst down the enemies in a blink of an eye. And Immortality will give you an extra life, allowing you to escape or finish off the enemies. And here's something you didn't know about Immortality. When you die and get revived again using Immortality, all your energy will also be restored, and this is why Immortality is better compared to Rose Gold. And for his emblem, go for the Assassin emblem, as this is the most suitable emblem for Nolan. And for his talents, these are the best talents for Nolan. Rapture and Lethal Ignition will allow you to deal more damage, increasing your overall damage potential. And Seasoned Hunter will increase your damage against turtles and Lord, allowing you to take down the turtle and Lord quickly. Now, let's talk about his gameplay and how to use him in a match. During the start of the game, make sure to unlock your first skill first. And using your enhanced basic attack and first skill, you should be able to farm properly. And make sure to always start with the blue buff when using Nolan, as Nolan heavily relies on the blue buff to deal damage. And I'd recommend you to try reaching level 4 as soon as possible. And after you reach level 4, make sure to gank the gold lane. Remember, ganking the gold lane should always be your priority during the early game. Plus, ganking the gold lane is also the easiest, because the marksmen are usually the weakest during the early game. And after ganking the gold lane, rotate towards the lane where the turtle is about to spawn, and if possible, you can try to gank the mid or top lane while waiting for the turtle. And here, as you can see, I managed to get another kill, right before the turtle spawned. But just as I was about to take the turtle, I noticed that the enemies were trying to contest for the turtle. And also, my blue buff just got spawned at the same time. So I decided to take my blue buff instead of going for the turtle. Because if I tried taking the turtle, the enemies would have definitely tried contesting for the turtle. And especially without the blue buff, I didn't want to take the risk. But in the end, my teammates decided to take the fight, and I didn't have a choice but to join the fight. And we almost ended up losing the team fight. But luckily, only our mage was killed. And me and Cho barely managed to escape. So, your early game priority should be reaching level 4, ganking the gold lane, and taking the turtle. And since Nolan is very strong right from the start, make sure to take that to your advantage by ganking the side lanes, and trying to secure as much kills as possible. But make sure not to over-engage, especially if the situation doesn't favor you. Now, let's talk about his mid-game. During the mid-game, Nolan shines the most, as this is the stage where he's the strongest. And your main priority during the mid-game should be killing their mage and marksman, as they are the main damage dealers of the team. And make sure to be careful when playing against heroes like Franco, Kufra, and Minsathar, as these are the heroes that can counter Nolan. And he can also be countered using Twilight Armor. And if the enemies buy Twilight Armor, make sure to buy Sea Halberd. And during the mid-game, make sure to continue putting pressure on the enemies by constantly ganking them. So, your mid-game priorities should be targeting their mage and marksman, rotating and ganking the lanes as much as possible. Now, let's talk about his late game. During the late game, Nolan starts to fall off a bit. And during this stage, you must be very careful during teamfights, especially if the enemies have multiple stun abilities. And you must remember that Nolan is a hit-and-run hero. So during a teamfight, you must quickly go in and try to kill their mage and marksman. But if you fail to kill them, then you should immediately retreat. Because if you run out of energy, then the enemies will easily be able to kill you. And if possible, you should always try to go for the backline of the enemies during a teamfight, as picking off their main damage dealers will increase the chances of winning the teamfight by a lot. And remember, timing and positioning is the key to winning during the late game. So always wait for the perfect moment to enter the fight, as one wrong move could instantly lead to your defeat. If the enemies have hard stun abilities, then I'd recommend you to wait for them to use their stun abilities first. And after they finish using their stun abilities, you can quickly enter the teamfight and pick off the enemies. And something you should remember is that Nolan isn't really a late game hero, so you should always try to end the game as fast as you can. And the best way to end the game quickly is by taking the Lord, as taking the Lord increases the chances of winning by a lot. So, what do you think about Nolan? Make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments. And consider leaving a like on the video if you have watched this far. And subscribe to my channel for more videos like this. I make tutorials and informative videos about the game. Thank you for watching.